just right as we're going live anyway. Okay. Ah, great. It started like instantaneously. I love it when it does that. It catches me in mid-sentence, right? Okay. Hold on just a second, guys. Good morning. Good morning. I've just got a couple of things. My computer is acting up as usual, right? And I need to open a couple other windows here in the background so that I can see our event page and whatnot. I think I enabled the Q&A thing on the Hangouts, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I haven't messed around with it too much. So if you see like a button or a link or something like that on the event page that says, you know, ask your questions, click on it and post a comment of some sort and let me know, you know, that way we can see what happens on our end. We can play around with that a little bit. I think it's supposed to make comments show up inside our little Google Hangout window. So that'll be interesting. If you guys want to help us test that out, that will be rocking awesome. Okay, so let me get to the event page here real quick. I had to restart my computer. That's why I don't have everything open like I should. You know what? While I'm doing this, how about everybody just jump in and introduce themselves and say where you're hanging out from, and I'll get this all caught up real quick, and then we can get going. Morning, Matt.
Good morning.
Awesome. Full panel this morning. So, okay, I'm going to mute out. Everybody just start introducing themselves.
Oh,
well, okay, go Sandy.
Good morning, everyone. This is Sandy Root here. Normally, I'm here from Brooklyn, but I won't be broadcasting from Brooklyn anymore. I'm now on my way on my journey, but I'm at my mom's in New Jersey today. So, New Jersey, and it's a chilly morning here. I have a jacket on. So, good morning, everybody.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Vicki, coming from Houston, Texas, and it's a bright and sunny day. It's actually a little cool for us too, but it's about 72, so I'm sure it's going to warm up. But anyway, just glad to be here.
Good morning, this is Catherine from Boulder, Colorado, and as you can see, I've got my layers on this morning. I don't know what the temperature is, but it was cold enough to get into 2 layers, so glad you all joined us, and thank you so much for coming. I look forward to this discussion. It's going to be a juicy one.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Smith. I'm from Boise, Idaho, and everybody's talking about the temperature. I had to force myself to put a shirt on this morning so that I didn't show my bare chest. So anyways, happy to be here, and welcome, everyone.
Morning, everybody. This is Danielle DeLyons from Anaheim, California. As you can see, I'm the one that has no clothes on this morning. It's already 72, and I'm drinking coffee, dying already sweating. But everybody have a great morning. It's great to be here today.
Hey guys, this is Matt Rivers, and I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and always happy to be joining you guys on a wonderful Saturday morning. I look forward to today's content.
All right, took me a minute to get back to the page. Am I frozen? Am I moving? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
All right, cool. I think I have mostly everything organized in the background, which is good, but my computer, of course, is being slow. If anybody wants to donate a really awesome brand new Mac, you know, one of those like really super fast ones, I would be open to accepting it. I would accept it with joy and pleasure and gratitude. That would be so wonderful. Okay, so anyway, guys, welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. And just so you guys know, you know, last week or just before last week, I purchased the domain SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, so that it'll be so much easier for everybody to remember how to get to our Saturday Mastermind instead of having to search for our Google Plus event page and all that kind of thing. You could just go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. And you'll land on either, you know, you'll land on today's page if it's Saturday, the newest page, or you'll land on the replay, one or the other, depending on where you are in the week. So anyway, let's see here. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning that there's like a little Q&A app thing attached to our Hangout. So if you see on the Hangout window or the video or where, I'm not sure even where it pops up, but if you see that, click on it and post a comment there. I really want to see how that thing works on our end of it. And in that comment, say who you are and where you're hanging out from, and let us know, you know, is this your first time visiting with us on the Saturday Morning Mastermind, or have you been here before, or all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm out here in beautiful Southwest Georgia, and today, you know, our weather is just kind of a little, you know, clammy out today, I guess you could say. It's about not quite 70 degrees, and it's supposed to rain. Hopefully we won't get rained on, but if we do, then you know, we'll just curl up in a ball underneath the awning, you know. Okay, so anyway, this week is an interesting conversation because we're talking about, of course, we're still studying the book, The New Psycho-Cybernetics, and we are in chapter, let's see, I think it's chapter 11. Get to the page here. Yeah. Chapter 11, all about how to unlock your real personality, and it talks about the fact that, you know, if you can unlock your true personality, you become like this magnetic, awesome person who, you know, everybody wants to have something to do with, right? And of course, if you're in the home business industry, like so many of us here on the panel are, that's what you want. You want to attract people to you. You don't want to be pushing people away because you're so boring and horrible, you know. You want to be outgoing and having a good time. And of course, you know, we talk about you know, personality, and how, you know, we notice a lot of times that folks online will go out there and they will kind of, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of inhibited in their posts and in their blogs and in their videos, and they're afraid to just kind of be themselves because they worry about what other people are going to think. But in reality, you know, when it boils down to it, the people who are the most just out there and put themselves out there how they are and whatever are some of the most successful home business entrepreneurs. So of course, that, in my opinion, is really the key, is just how to you know, unlock your personality so that you can attract other people that are going to be like you. And that's kind of the key, because if you attract people that are you know, if you're not acting like you, then obviously it's possible you're going to attract people that aren't like you. So then if they do get to know the real you, they're going to be turned off, right? You don't want that. You want people that are going to be like you, who like you because you are you. And so, you know, and that's kind of another thing I've noticed, is that some people are afraid to be themselves because they're afraid they're going to offend people. But yet at the same time, if you know, if you are yourself and you're offending a few people, you know, that's okay, because those are people you probably don't want to be friends with anyway, right? So it kind of weeds out the people you don't want to have anything to do with anyhow. You know, I don't know. That's my thoughts. What do you guys think?
Well, what was I going to say? No, I'm sorry. No, I agree with what you were saying, for sure. It's, you know, when you're holding yourself back, it creates tension, and when you're able to really be yourself, it really is a freeing feeling, and people do become attracted to you when you are yourself, because people can pick up on your energy, and we always know when somebody's not being genuine and not being their genuine self and putting on a front or whatever, or not being them full selves, you know, being shy or inhibited. How do you say? Oh my God, I'm silly this morning. Anyway, so you know, and I understand the difference, because you know, as many of you know, if you've been watching for over the past year, that I used to be very, very shy, and you know, I can feel the difference big time now, because I feel much more myself and more comfortable being myself. You know, I still have my shy moments, but I can definitely feel the difference in how freeing it is and how I'm attracting more people to me because I am myself. And, you know, it's like, as Samantha was saying, a lot of us are in online business, and it's an attraction marketing thing for online marketers. You know, when you're being yourself, you really attract people to you out of nowhere, you know, out of the ethers, they just come. So, yeah, good points. That's it for now.
I agree with you also on that. And you said that so well, Sandy. We have to become attractive, and sometimes we lose who we are. I recall, and again, we're in home-based business, I recall the last company I was in, that at times the person I worked with would inhibit us because they were so dynamic and they wanted us to be like them so much, we forgot who we were. And it took me a minute to find myself again and be confident again to get out there. And you would think as an adult you get over those things, but it carries through, as we're going to read today from our childhood. I got held back a lot by my own father, who he didn't like me to express myself because I had really deep thoughts and I would see things real clearly and I would just state them very bluntly. And some people don't like those type of personalities. I've learned to calm them down and curb them a little bit, but you know, it's interesting how we learn not to allow ourselves to be inhibited, and these kinds of courses and talking about it helps definitely a lot.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, well, Danielle, thanks you for sharing that, but I think that may be a mistake by, you know, not really just being yourself. You know, as long as you're not abrasive, I think people will accept you for who you are. You know, I know friends like you that are just out there with it and just blunt to the point, and they're not actually trying to actually just be the forefront of anything. It's just that's their personality trait. And you know, the longer you hang around people, the longer you connect with people, and you just interact with those persons that are more different than you begin to accept that as them. You know, it's not something that you need to downplay or discount. I think you should just be the person that your dad held you back from being all the time. You know, I mean, because you look at some of the personalities out there, like Layla Stats. You know, she's really outgoing, and there's a bunch of other women that are just that have these dynamic personalities that just attract a ton of great people to them. And so just be yourself. But as far as for me, I'm kind of an internal thinker type of person, and that's my personality. I normally just hold things in, not necessarily to not be myself, but that's just the way I am. And even though if I'm in a group setting or something like that, I can always interact. I can always chime in. I can always participate and be outgoing. Okay, I'll call back. Thanks, Michael. Sorry, that was my son coming in. It's just that I prefer to just be kind of a blended person. I just wanted to be one of the pinstripes on that suit, you know, on that suit. But when need be, I can certainly step up. I can certainly be the leader. I can certainly be outgoing. But most cases, I'm just within myself, and I just love being that way. That's just comfortable for me. And I know you got to get out of your comfort zone and all that stuff, but it's not me hiding. You know, it's not that I'm trying to not be noticed. It's just that I like to observe things and just kind of internally grasp whatever it is that's going on around me. Now I'm usually involved in just participating and stuff like that, but I prefer quiet. You know, I don't really like the hoot and hollering around, but I'm able to do it if I want to. You know, so I don't know. It's kind of it works for me. You know, because when I do my videos, I'm myself. I don't try and be overly excited because, as Sandy mentioned, you can tell when people are just really not. You can tell when somebody's not really being authentic. You know, so you got to be careful with it, I think, but certainly don't hide being yourself. You know, if that's not you. You know, if you want to be outgoing, be outgoing. I think if you want to be quiet, like me, sometimes it's okay. You know, just Ride it out. All right, guys. I'll let somebody else take the floor.
Well, a little bit for me. I think probably I'm actually starting to come more into who I truly am, as opposed to the person that I was being identified by my career choice for the past 32 years. So, and sometimes I find that's a little challenging, because when I visit with people who know me from, say, my work, from when I was working, they still want to identify me as the nurse. And that is a part of my personality. I am that caring person and want to do those kind of things. But sometimes when you're trying to break out, into who you really are and what you feel like you're called to do, there's those other people who they don't want you to do that. So they kind of want to keep you kind of in the little box of, okay, well, you're this. And so I'm on the path of trying to find the balance between the two, of still being totally who I feel I am and pursuing the things that I think are my natural calling, and still yet honor the people who view me as the label of my career. So I'm looking forward to this particular chapter, so I think it's going to be really good.
I do too, Vicki. I think that I think this is a huge topic here in this niche that we are in, because you come online, you don't know anything about internet marketing or how to make a video or any of this stuff, and you come online and you start, there's so many different mentors out there and so much education. I mean, you can be completely overwhelmed with education on how to do all this stuff. But in the process of trying to be coachable and trying to get out of our comfort zone, we wind up mimicking other people and like taking on their personality. I mean, we're not trying to. It's just that we don't know how to do what we're doing, and we're learning from them, and so we kind of mimic them, but we totally lose ourselves in that, And if you listen, most of them are telling you, be yourself, take these techniques and be yourself, but somehow it just takes a while for that to sink in or something. I don't know. We all have very unique personalities, and it's okay. Sometimes you think to be in this sort of a business, you have to have that outgoing, bubbly, blah, 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 blah kind of personality, and you don't. Everybody has their own personality. Some people are very low key, some people are very high key, and it's all great, because there are other people out there that are going to be attracted to that energy regardless of what there is. There's so many different kinds of people, I mean, I've been studying personality types, and it's perfectly okay to be you. You can be successful without changing a thing about yourself, other than maybe, working on some of these issues and coming out of your shell and developing some technical skills that anybody can learn, stuff like that. But all right, let's jump into this stuff. I'm excited.
I find that very I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for, but yeah, I completely agree with you, Catherine, because I think that one of the things is that with everything that is going on out there, it's hard to really find your place in all of it. And then of course, if you are working with more of an inhibited personality, like what it talks about here, and you're trying to be something that you aren't, then of course that never works out as well either way, because like what Met was saying, I mean, people can tell, they can tell if you're not being yourself, and because people feel it, even if they don't see it or hear it, they still feel it. And so that's important to, just be yourself, right? And it's like, well, let's kind of get into the chapter just a little bit before we move forward, because there's a lot of things that we can talk about with the, in this topic. So, but the first part of this is, of course, talking about how, we already kind of mentioned that what personality is, but Maxwell Maltz what's the word I'm looking for? Definition basically says what we call personality is the outward evidence of a unique and individual creative self made in the image of God, that spark of divinity within us, or what we might be called the free and full expression of your real self. This real self is within every person, or this real self within every person is attractive. It's magnetic. It does have a powerful impact and influence on others. And, I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, because it's talking about, being powerful and an influence on others. And when you can be yourself and you can express yourself, then other people, of course, are like, oh, well, if that person can be themselves, I can be myself and I don't have to worry about it. And, kind of an example is, when I started making video and, of course, doing hangouts and that sort of thing, I've not always been the best communicator verbally. I stumble over my words sometimes. I lose my track of thought. I say things backwards compared to what other people say, things like that. And at first I was like, oh, people are gonna think I'm like retarded or something, or not. I know you're not really supposed to use the word retarded, but I use it anyway, not to be offensive towards anybody who is mentally disabled. Is that the right word? I don't even know, but that's not what I mean by it, Okay, anyway, so my point is, sometimes you stumble over your words, sometimes you say things that aren't quite right, sometimes you will not know what to say, and that's okay. That's kind of the thing, is that if I can do it, you can do it, everybody can do it. But anyway, oh, real quick before we go forward, I just want to say real quick, because Sandy Kalinowski commented on here, and she says, I'm Sandy Kalinowski from Virginia Beach. I attended last week at Sandy Root's invitation. I loved it. That's awesome. I hope that I pronounced your last name correctly. But welcome. Glad to have you on with us. So let's see. Let's kind of jump into here a little bit more, because it was talking about how everybody has a dynamic personality locked up within him, but for some reason or another, the person's afraid to express themselves, afraid to be himself, has locked up his real self within an inner person. And in that next section, it talks about excessive negative feedback equals inhibition. And he says that, what was it he was saying? He says every inhibition, all inhibition is learned, taught to the self-image, and we're not born with it. And he gives the example of babies, and that babies are just completely uninhibited, and they just do whatever they feel, they act however they feel, they say whatever they want as they're growing up, when they're little. And it's not until they get older that the parents get involved, and they start saying, no, don't talk this way, don't do that, don't do this, and that sort of thing. And Captain and I were kind of having a back and forth conversation a little bit in our pre-mastermind discussion, where we're talking about how, when, of course, there's like what Matt was saying, he's more of an introspective kind of a person, and I was the same way. I wasn't as outgoing. So I think we all have these natural tendencies in our personalities to be either outgoing or be more reserved or that sort of thing. But yet at the same time, when we have excessive negative feedback, from our parents or from people out there in the world or from teachers or that sort of thing, if you're a real outgoing person, I think sometimes that negative feedback doesn't affect you as much as, say, somebody who is more reserved, which, and that's kind of how I was. I was more of a reserved individual. I have been most of my life, and as I was growing up in elementary school, the little things that I would do that were more outgoing or bubbly or whatever usually got me into some kind of trouble at school. And I think that, I kind of feel like if I don't know, I'm not really sure, maybe those things, maybe because I was more reserved, I was more sensitive to those. And so because of that higher level of sensitivity, is that when I would express myself in a more outgoing way, and I would get in trouble for it, that would kind of cause me to be more inhibited. Because in here he talks about how when you when you have negative feedback, if you take it if you're too sensitive to it, it can cause you to completely stop trying to be whatever it is you're trying to be, versus you know, if you just take it as gentle critique. You know, of course, when I was young and I grew up in a Christian school, anything that we did was out of line. We would get in big trouble for it. We'd get paddled, or we'd get set in the corner, you know. I mean, it was just, you know, and when you're called out as a young child and, you know, kind of put on the spot and told you're not act the right way, then, you know, I think that can have a huge impact on you as you're growing up. And, you know, and even though I kind of look back on those times and I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't really that big a deal. When I read this book and it talks about, you know, being too sensitive can cause you to actually inhibit yourself, I wonder if that's what, you know, caused me to be so much more reserved than what I may have been if, you know, if I wasn't as sensitive to those things. What do you guys think about, like, the difference between the personalities and, you know, negative feedback and all that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. Yeah, I can really identify with what you're talking about, Samantha, because I grew up in a Christian home, but the church that I grew up in was and they still teach this today, that they're the only group. They're it. They're the only one that's going to go to heaven. And I mean, you can get out of bed in the morning going to heaven. By 10 o'clock, you're going in the morning. You're going to hell. By noon, you're going to heaven again. I mean, you're in, you're out. You're in, you're out. You know, and so yeah, I grew up with excessive negative feedback at home. And this section of this book has really meant a lot to me in the past. And I'll show you a little graph. I don't know if it'll show up on here or not. I'll hold it up to the camera. That's a little graph that I drew in this book like 2 years ago, and I made a bigger version this morning. Maybe you can see that, but I've seen it as a like a monitor type of a thing, like in your car. If your oil's getting too hot and you got a needle and it's swinging over into a red line area, and that red line area is saying danger, 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 you know, don't go there. And like with what I grew up in school, I was extremely quiet and reserved in school too. And so, you know, for years I took my cues from other people. It's like I smoked cigarettes because I thought that, well, that'll make me look cool, you know, and if I look cool, then other people think that I'm a cool person, I'm all right. You know, you listen to certain types of music because if other people see you listen to this kind of music, then they'll think you're a cool person. They'll want to be around you. Wear the right clothes. You know, all the things that we do, that we take our cues from society, that if I do this, will you accept me? You know, and the excessive negative feedback was that if I really let who I am out and somebody really sees who I am, they won't like me because I'm not a likable person. I'm not a lovable person. I don't measure up just to standards. You know, in school I thought my ears was too big and my knees was too big, and you know, we can all draw attention to ourselves, the negative things that we, you know, when you look in the mirror, what do you see looking back at you? You take excessive negative cues from that, and then that causes you this reservedness, this tendency to turn inward, and like Matt was saying, you know, I can be a cave dweller very, very easily. You know, I don't need a lot of people around me, and so it's very easy for me to go into myself and into my own little space and be perfectly 100% confident or comfortable there, because there's nothing challenging your world. There's nothing there that's you know, nobody questioning, you know, whether you're saying the right things or doing the right things, and so you're really escaping going into the cave, so to speak, and not having to be out there, not having to be the person that you really are, projecting your thoughts, projecting that, hey, I don't have to smoke a cigarette in order for you to accept me. You know, I'm perfectly comfortable now. I mean, I quit smoking over 30 years ago. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but I don't have to wear the right clothes in order for me to feel that you will accept me for who I really am, and you know, to express your thoughts and put them out there, and to be that dynamic personality, to be somebody that people will be attracted to and drawn to, not because you're trying to be the same as everybody else, but because you're actually being different from everybody else. You're being who you are, letting the true personality come out. So anyways, I don't mean to capitalize the whole conversation. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Dan always says the most valuable things. I love hearing from him every time we do these. You nail things so well. And I'm sitting here thinking about how our personalities, as we grow, we go through different phases. And as children, I think they say that by the time we're just a couple years old, we've heard no 5,000 or 6,000 times, as opposed to maybe 1,000 times we hear a yes. So that, starts holding us back in life very young of no, 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 no. And I think we all have, it sounds like a lot of us have a very common bound of being raised in very strict Christian homes. I was as well. My dad was an elder of a church. And so there was an even bigger responsibility as his children. I was the oldest of 6, to uphold a certain way of behavior. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And as you get older, and what Vicki said, I'm just beginning to find who I am too, and trying to understand how all of those past experiences, we're trying to figure it out kind of why we behave certain ways. And I think it was a rebellion for me because I didn't know how to express myself, and every time I would try when I was younger, I'd get shut down so much that it came out, I'm going to say what's on my mind, but I'll say it in a nice way, but it's super direct because it is how I feel. It is how my world sees it, and not be afraid that I'm going to offend somebody and being that way. And actually, it served me. People really appreciate that at times, that you are direct if you do it in a very kind way, and being able to have a voice of your opinions. I've learned that more people are drawn to me now. They'll come to me because they know I won't candy coat it. I'm not Willy Wonka, so to speak. I will be very kind, but I will be very direct. And it's me getting more true to myself when it really comes down to it, and not being held back from all the no's, and you should behave this way, and you have to dress this way or act this way. It takes time in life to understand that. And so, Dan, I so agree with you on everything you just said.
Okay, Sandy, on the question part here, or on the hangout, Sandy Kalinowski says, I grew up in an abusive alcoholic home. My mother's husband was physically and mentally abusive. It was repeatedly reinforced that I would never amount to anything, couldn't do anything right, etc. I tend to be extremely reserved. And and I think that's a huge thing right there. Of course, you received like excessive negative feedback, and and kind of like what Dan was talking about with the at one moment you're going to heaven, the next moment you're going to hell, and I experienced that a lot too. I mean, that was how it was at school. It's like, man, if you're in trouble, you are going to hell. You're gonna burn, and that's a horrible thought. And I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it, Dan. But the truth is that that has a huge impact on you, whether you realize it or not. If you think, okay, one minute if you're behaving the exact right way, that everything's going to be glorious and wonderful, and the streets are going to be paved with gold, and the angels are going to be floating you around from cloud to cloud, and everything's going to be beautiful, and yet then the next moment you are going to be thrown in a fiery pit of burning lava and have your skin melt off. I mean, that's a huge thing. And so as I think back over those things, now that we're really talking about it, and this is really powerful, and that's one of the reasons I love doing these masterminds, is that we kind of help each other remember the things that have happened to us in our lives that have maybe caused us to be more reserved, or caused us to be more outgoing, or just caused us to have whatever things that are going on in our brains that are holding us back. And that's something that's really interesting, is I didn't even think about the whole hell heaven aspect of it, but yet for me, I I grew up in a Christian school from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, with the exception of 2 years that I went to public school. And of course, those 2 years that I went to the public school, you know, I made a bunch of friends and we had a good time, but I got in trouble for, you know, doing stupid shit that kids do when they're teenagers. And of course, when I had that happen, my dad was like, stop the truck, you're going back to Christian school, you know. So it's like, you know, you can't have friends if you're gonna lie. You can't have friends if you're gonna go and, you know, do stuff that you shouldn't be doing. And of course, granted, some of the stuff I was doing I shouldn't have been doing, but it wasn't as bad as some people I knew, you know. But, you know, if I think back on that, I can see how that would have really inhibited my personality, because here's another aspect of it. Is when in the Christian school, of course, my class, or, you know, it's like I was a class of 90, and my class only had 54 students in it. And, you know, when you think about how many different personality types there are in the world, and I was limited to just these 54 possible friends that I could have, and most of them I had absolutely nothing in common with. I mean, just nothing. So I had two friends that I had in high school that I connected with, that, you know, we talked on the same level, we had the same kind of thoughts and all of that kind of stuff, and everybody else in school was just completely different. Just completely, I didn't relate with them, I didn't understand them, they didn't make any sense to me, the way that they talked or thought or any of those kinds of things. And so when I graduated from school, and of course just kind of in general out there in the world, I would come into contact with other people, and I would have a hard time communicating with them, because I think I had it in my mind that, you know, I'm limited. I'm limited to people that are going to be like me, because I hadn't met that many people throughout my life that thought like me, acted like me, you know, had that kind of a personality. And I think that kind of inhibited me as well, because I thought, you know, if I can't relate to the kids at my school, how can I possibly relate to the average person out there in the world? So if I would go to, you know, like a social gathering or something like that, I would be more reserved about talking to people. I wouldn't know what to say to them, because I would think that they wouldn't understand me anyway, you know. And I think that kind of, you know, that carried over, of course, into my adult life, and with, you know, helped really kind of made me inhibited as far as being, you know, conversationally wise. You know, it wasn't until I started connecting with more people on, you know, in the home business industry, that I started realizing there are so many more people out there that do think the way that I do. And so I'm very, very, very happy that I've been able to connect with more people in this way. But I can see how there's things that just can hold you back without even you realizing it. Anybody want to jump in?
Yeah, the problem is that it goes to the subconscious level, and I think we talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it lies there sleeping, you know, but it's active. It completely moves out of your conscious thought, so you're not even aware that it's down there in your subconscious mind, and it's cooking away, and it controls the actions that you take, the things that you say. It controls your interaction with other people, and I don't know, it's like an ice pick, you know, chipping away. If you stand on a block of ice, so to speak, and it's chipping away, or sand, maybe sand would be a better analogy. You know, have you ever been to the ocean, and you're standing there maybe only in like ankle deep water, but you know the wave, when it's coming back out, it's actually taking the sand out from underneath your feet, and you're just standing still, but you're literally sinking down into the sand. And for an analogy, you know, the subconscious thoughts that you have that you're not even aware of consciously, and yet it's like that sand is just being sucked out from underneath of your feet, and literally sinking you down deeper and deeper, repressing, you know, your self-expression. So anyway, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dan. And, you know, we do a lot of this work on hangouts like this, and I know all of us here on this hangout, we do daily mindset work. We're in other masterminds, and we're constantly working on this stuff, and that's great that we work on it consciously. But like you just said, a lot of this stuff is subconscious. We're not even aware of it. I did a post recently when I was staying with the grandma. I remember I was staying with the grandma, and I noticed that there was something on the kitchen floor there. And there's something that had been spilled, and so I was like, oh, I need to clean that up, so my friend, when she comes home, she doesn't have to deal with that. And I'm down there and I'm trying to clean it up, and it wouldn't come up. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, scrubbing it and trying to chip it up, and everything. And I was like, what is going on? Why am I so concerned about the spot on the floor? I had to just stop and think, this is turned into like World War III here on this spot. This is more than just a dirty spot on the floor, right? So I remembered way, way, way back, I think I was 11. I went to my girlfriend's house to spend the night, and back then, nowadays, I don't know what goes on, but back then, if your parent cooked supper for you, then, here comes the train. I don't know. If you got supper cooked for you, you were sure going to be doing those dishes and cleaning up that kitchen. That was the kid's job, right? You had to do all that stuff. So my friend and I, we cleaned up the dishes and we cleaned up the floor, but not to her dad's liking. He was an alcoholic, and he came in and he looked around, and he wasn't satisfied, and he started screaming at us, and he went out, and the next thing I know, here he comes in with this shotgun. The minute he came through the kitchen doorway, he starts shooting at us with this shotgun, and of course we took off out the back door running like hell. But I didn't think much about that at the time. I know that sounds weird, because you think, oh my God, an 11-year-old getting shot at, but at the time, that's just the world that I lived in. I don't know how else to say it, but it really wasn't a big trauma or anything. But here I am scrubbing this spot on the floor, and I realized, holy shit, my whole life, I haven't even used a mop. I've gotten down on my hands and knees to scrub the floors to make sure it was clean. This is why, even though I didn't see it traumatic at the time, this is totally why. So stuff like that comes up all the time, and like I said, working on it consciously is great, but if all this stuff is underneath and you don't know what's there, what do you do about that? So one of the things that we do, I know a lot of us here do, is I made a recording to play at night with my self-talk and my affirmations and stuff, and I just leave it playing all night. It's music and my voice, overimposed on the music, and it just plays all night, and that's when your conscious mind is asleep, and then those messages can really get in there and do some work while you don't have your RoboCop up there, All right. Oh, hush. Let me find my mouse. I'm in a weird position today. Sorry. I'm just trying to get a better background behind me, but I didn't get it all set up. So.
I like your background, Catherine. Is it a painting, or is it like a wall hanging? Are you like a fabric wall hanging? What is it?
Yeah, it's like a fabric wall hanging. I've had this thing for like 20 years. Sometimes it's on my ceiling. Sometimes it's, on a wall. So it moves around. I like it too. Thanks.
It's cool. I noticed it as soon as you got on. It was just a really neat background. I like it. Now I lost my train of thought. If anybody wants to jump in. Jump in. Oh, I remember what I was going to say is that, on the subconscious level, in the pre-mastermind discussion, Catherine, you mentioned how, a lot of us are more sensitive in subtle ways, and how, particularly if you're more reserved or more introverted, and well, I honestly, I can't say that. I guess I can't say that because I don't know. Maybe there are outgoing people that are more intuitive too. I'm just not. I don't know. I'm speaking from my own perspective, and and I think that's kind of a thing, is that intuitive side of you can really feel things that you don't necessarily see or hear on the surface, but you feel it. And whether or not it has something to do with you, because I think that you mentioned that as well, Catherine, is how and we've talked about this a lot, how we sometimes will take things personally, even when it doesn't have a dang thing to do with us, particularly if we're around people and we aren't sure what they're feeling or thinking or that sort of thing, is that other people's feelings towards themselves and whatever state that they're in can actually have an effect on us if we're very intuitive, or even if we're not very intuitive, but we just kind of unsure of ourselves. We can amplify things that we think that other people are thinking, and so then that can cause us to be more inhibited in what we do and what we say, and and things like that. And so I think that's kind of a powerful thing. Now I've lost my train of thought again, but yeah, anybody jump out there. Oh wait, Sandy made another comment. She says, Dan's right. The negative thoughts put into one's head at an early age stick with you. I'm still lugging mine around. I became aware of it, but haven't been able to rid myself of it. And I'm right there with you, girl. I think we all are. And, that's kind of one of the things, is that, we get on these hangouts and we mastermind and we express ourselves and we share. And then that helps each other, So, one thing, and do you guys have something else you want to add real quick before I kind of think of, I have another thing I wanted to talk about with the chapter?
I wanted to jump in again. I know I'm jumping in a lot today. And it's because I'm having revelations as we go through this chapter this morning. And I was excited. After reading it, it really took listening to everybody else a little bit to just kind of make it snap more. And I used to feel like I was cursed. You just hit on something that I almost felt like I had a curse, because my intuitions, and they may not always be correct, they were so powerful. I think that's what bothered my father and other people. I could nail things so accurately. And I got held back, and later on it came out that a lot of things I felt towards him were so accurate. He didn't want me to be able to see him because he saw that I could see him, if that makes any sense at all. And I'm that way now. My intuitions are extremely strong. It's probably why I'm so direct. I don't mess around with it and try to guess. But it's interesting how we're trying to figure those things out. So today's exciting to me. I just wanted to add that little thought.
Now I forgot what I was going to say. I have to scan ahead here real quick. Hold on. Or you guys can jump in if
I'm
you
going to say something real quick before I forget it, because that seems to be what we're doing this morning. I think another thing that can be sort of inhibiting for us as we come online too and try to market and stuff is, how do I say this? Like, as we become more, as we see how our words affect our lives, and we become more conscious of monitoring our words and our thoughts and our actions, it gets, to me, it has been a little inhibiting about what do I really want to put out on the internet? Because once it's there, it's there. And so even if I'm trying to share something that I think is helpful, or that sometimes I stop before I do that, because is this really something that I want to reinforce around myself? Is this really something that I want to focus on? Because my focus, as I learned how important my focus is, I sometimes, I go to do a blog post or a video or something, and I think, oh, wait a minute, do I really want to put that out there? Not because I feel like I'm going to be judged, or because I'm afraid of how people are going to respond to it, but because of what is going to happen to me by reinforcing that thought feeling, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that made sense. I'll shut up now.
Catherine, you're so funny. I'll shut up now. Actually, that brings something up I wanted to talk about. And along the side of being yourself, but yet trying to weed out those things that you don't want to be anymore. And so I think that's a powerful thing, because I was kind of thinking about this. It's like, just like what you were talking about, do I really want to put that out on the internet? Because, I don't know that I want to reinforce those those thoughts or feelings or that kind of attitude on myself, because of course when you put it out there, it's almost like you just like writing it in the ether of the universe when you stick it on the internet. And I think sometimes that's even more powerful than, say, writing in a journal or, you know, writing affirmations or or that sort of thing, is that, you know, when you put it out there on the internet, it expands much further, in my opinion, than what it might be if you just kind of had it just to yourself. But okay, so my point is that one of the things with my personality over the years, that, you know, at home I tend to be more what's the word for it, kind of like a I have more of a blunt personality in a lot of ways, but I tend to be, I don't even know if the right word for it is judgmental. I tend to be that way sometimes, you know. I'm very opinionated about certain things, particularly other people's behavior, you know, and so, you know, that's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I need to just not be that way so much, you know. And so if I were to just automatically say the first thing that pops into my head when I see things on the internet, you know, that part of my personality would be put out there, and that's not something that I want to reinforce. I'm working towards having a more positive attitude, of being a more supportive person versus a more critical person. And, you know, so we have that kind of balance with, you know, expressing our true personality, but yet at the same time curbing those parts of our personality that we are working on changing. So I think that's, I don't know, is that kind of what you were thinking along that lines, Catherine? Because that was something that yeah, you know. So okay, so then in the next part of this book, this section, it talks about some of the things that you can do to be less inhibited. And one of the things it talks about is if you are trying to express your personality, be more of yourself, and maybe you're hoping to so one of the things it talks about is how these excessive negative feedback, of course, can inhibit your personality. So if you're trying to be more outgoing with your personality because that's what you want to be, you want to add that to yourself, and you are afraid of negative feedback, is to put yourself in situations where the feedback is going to be accurate but yet more kind, if you will, versus just putting it out randomly in public. So it talks about in here about like Toastmasters International. I don't know if you guys know what that is. I actually had to look it up and kind of get an idea, but basically that's similar to what we're doing here on our Hangouts, is that we are getting outside of our comfort zone in a safe environment, and that's what Toastmasters International is. It's about, you know, it's for folks that want to be better presenters and leaders and, you know, public speakers and that sort of thing, so that they can start working towards being that in a safe environment where they're not just going to have people say negative things to them, but they're going to have people that critique them in a good way. And you know, because one of the things with being on the internet is that we kind of, leaders on the internet are speakers in one way or another, either out here in video, on presentations, you know, or even in, you know, at events and that sort of thing. And if you're unsure of yourself and you're not comfortable yet, is that kind of putting yourself in a situation like what we do on these Hangouts is very similar to what it was talking about in Toastmasters International, of, you know, getting together with a group of friends who you know and you trust, who aren't going to just be like, you're saying the wrong thing, you shouldn't have said retarded. You know, you don't say those things. You know, that's not good. You know, all those kinds of things, and you know, or, you know, you look funny, or you act funny, or you do. Who knows what people are actually thinking or saying out there? But when you're with a group of folks who are going to be supportive versus critical, then that can really make a huge difference. And particularly when you're just starting to, you know, get out there with your personality, when you're connecting with other people, even just on Facebook and chatting with one another, and how when you connect with people who are similar to you and are more supportive, then you have that feedback without it being so negative. So that's my thoughts. What do you guys think? I kind of rambled around in circles there for a minute.
I've had the pleasure of being part of Toastmasters, and I love it. It really helps a lot. I've been able to speak in front of people since I was really young, again, because of the religion I grew up in. At a very young age, we were in front of people presenting things. I'm not that religious belief any longer, but at the time, you got over that, and so it helped me appreciate what other people go through, and it really helped me to become better. Even this morning, I'll be honest, I know I've talked a lot today, and in the back of me, there's that little voice going, be quiet, don't talk. They might not want to hear what you have to say, and you're still doing it to yourself, and you don't even realize. We continue to do that self-talk, and we have to stop that chatter inside of us constantly. It inhibits us constantly, and Toastmasters actually addresses that very aggressively, so you're not thinking while you're talking, you're being free with your thoughts, and it takes time to get good with that. It doesn't just happen.
I agree with those thoughts. Just chiming back in really quickly here because I do actually have to go now, but like you, Danielle, I was actually always okay standing in front of people. I don't know if it was just being a class clown in front of my buddies, when we were young, but I never had an issue with stage fright per se. Oh, there was this one time. I was the ring bearer for this wedding, and I think I was about 3 years old. And, I have that picture today, actually. My mom does. And I have this tuxedo on, cute as a button, and they draft me or volunteer me to walk this ring down the aisle. So all the commotion's going on around me. I'm sitting out there on a bench with this pillow and this ring in my lap, not knowing really what's going on. Then here comes my turn to actually have to get up and walk down the aisle with the ring. And I would not go down the aisle. You talk about somebody had skid marks from the top of the church all the way down to the end, crying. Oh man, I still remember that to this day. But that was the only time I can actually ever remember being afraid of being in front of people. I don't know if that was the catalyst to get me over that hump, but ever since then, I've never been afraid. And I've actually attended Toastmasters when I was at Merrill Lynch. I was in the retirement department. It was just something for me to do so I could do something else, kind of break my routine. And I joined in. It was during my lunch period, so it wasn't like I can get off the phones doing what I was really working there for. And I would sit there listen to, because I was invited by another coworker who was trying to, be a better speaker. I was listening to everybody get up, and there were a lot of novices, and there were more people, more seasoned or more comfortable being up in front of people. But I just thought Toastmasters is a really good thing that you could get into if you're having issues talking in front of people. But I thought I'd share that story. I remember that to this day, guys.
I got to share one more. I'm sorry, guys. You stirred another one. I went to walk up on a stage in front of about 15,000 people, and I had these new leather high-heel blue suede shoes on that I just thought were so hot. I got up there, and one of them was a little loose, and it flew off my foot as it got to the top of the stage into the audience. Oh my God, I wanted to die. And instead of letting it freeze me, I'll never forget, I kicked the other one off and laughed. I had the whole audience laughing, and it helped me get over myself a lot. And I've remembered that every time I go through that fear, you can do this. You kicked a shoe into an audience of thousands of people and had everybody laugh. And, and it actually, a lot of people came back and thanked me for that because it helped them get over themselves as well. So we have to not apologize for being who we are or going through those fears and be open enough to admit it. So whoever's listening in today, I hope that our conversation today and letting our silly sides out too helps somebody here.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. You know, I've always kind of, you know, not always, but I've always had that kind of same attitude of, you know, you fall down or something silly happens, and instead of being like, oh my God, what's everybody going to think? Is you're just like, you jump up and you're like, ta-da, I meant to do that, you know? And, you know, it's funny because you know, of course, you know, I keep talking about how, you know, I was more of a reserved personality and you know, kind of more shy. And, but yet some things just have not really ever affected me so much, just like those kinds of situations. And you know, I was taking this this motorcycle class a while, you know, it's been a number of years ago that I took this, and you know, I was on this big motorcycle. I'm only 5 foot tall, and at the time I probably weighed about, you know, a third less than what I do. And you know, this motorcycle was really heavy, and we're trying to do these curves, and they teach you to, you know, lean into the curve, and you're supposed to not put your feet down when you're turning and stuff like that. And of course, you know, when you come to a stop, then you're supposed to put your feet down. Well, I was going around this curve, and I was going too slow. I was going so slow that I literally fell over. And you know, I could have been like, oh my God, I just fell over, you know. I mean, but then at the same time, I'm just like, it was so funny because I'm like going along, and I start falling over, and I was like, oh, I'm falling. And then I was just like, I'm just gonna lay down, you know. And I jumped back up, and I was like, I meant to do that. That was a graceful fall, wasn't it? You know, and it was funny because we got back in the classroom, and the and the instructor, he was like, that was the most graceful fall I think I've ever seen anybody take on a motorcycle. And I was like, well, you know. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But the point is that you know, that one of the things it talks about in here is that, you know, if you stop worrying so much about what other people think and just act how you would if you were at home. If you're gonna stand in your kitchen and talk to your friends, which, I mean, we've all done that. If you can kind of imagine yourself in that same situation when you're, you know, talking to people that you haven't, you know, connected with so much, and then that can make it easier, more comfortable. And of course, it talks about this one guy who he was a salesman, and he was staying at this hotel, or he'd have to stay at hotels regularly, and he'd have to eat by himself in the dining room, and how, you know, he would be so nervous about, you know, thinking that everybody's just staring at him because he's eating alone. And yet then he was like, you know, he started realizing what he was doing, so he was like, well, how is it that I'm completely comfortable when I'm sitting at a table by myself at home, you know? And so he kind of took that attitude with him and was like, you know, I'm just going to pretend like I'm at home in my own kitchen eating, you know, food by myself. And once he did that, all that anxiety released from him. So I thought that was powerful. But we're at the top of the hour. So does anybody have anything else you want to add before we wrap this up today? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, something that just popped into my mind a second ago, that we should strive to be interested, not interesting, to take the spotlight off yourself, so to speak. Don't be so concerned about what people are thinking about you. Actually interview other people and get them to talk about themselves, and ask them questions about themselves, what they think about whatever, you know, and not strive to be interesting to them, but to be interested in them, and, you know, just to see what they are as a human being, and take the spotlight off yourself, put it on the other person. So that's all I got.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Nope. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation about, you know, kind of unleashing your true personality. And as you've kind of seen across the panel here with everybody jumping out, you know, we all have different personalities and different perspectives, and we all see things differently and feel differently, but yet we have a lot of things in common as well, which is probably the same with you. I mean, you have a lot of things in common with us, and it's okay, you know, however it is that you're out there. I mean, as far as your personality goes, you're cool. We love you. You're awesome. And so anyway, I'm just going to wrap it up. Today is thank you for joining us today on our Saturday morning mastermind. And again, you can find this event page, the replay or the live page, by visiting SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That'll bring you right here. So if you need to find it in the future, or you want to find the replay, that's how you get here. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this conversation. So you can jump over to our community, which is mindsetmasterycollective.com, and right now we have this week's pre-mastermind discussion where you can add your thoughts and your experiences on this topic, and learn, so we can learn from you as well. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing, and wonderful weekend. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this show, and we enjoyed sharing with you. So with that, we're going to wrap it up, and have a great day. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.